want to talk about picks today, and I'd done a video a while back on it, and it didn't. The audio on it kind of got messed up, so I'm going to do a new one, a little bit more detailed, and just to kind of preface the whole pick discussion, I want to talk about. I like to talk about, think about signal path as two different signal paths. It's a signal path is a term that audio engineers use to describe the path from the microphone to the computer and then ultimately, or to the tape if you're using tape, and ultimately to the speakers. For example, when I'm recording acoustic guitar, there's a microphone there. You could have a cheap microphone, you could have a really high quality microphone. That's going to play a role in your signal path. The cable going from it could be a high quality cable, it could be a really cheap cable. It could be going into a preamp then, and EQ and compression and the cabling connecting all those play a role in your signal path. It's all part of the path. And then if you're going into a mixing board like a Neve console or something like that, then that whole signal path that channel has and all those knobs and all those all the wiring in there is part of the signal path. And then from there going into the digital converter, the A to D converter, and then whatever quality you're using there. And then when it gets to the computer and whatever you're doing with it there, whether it be Pro Tools or Logic or Digital Performer, whatever, and then back into the DA converters, and then this time you're going to the DA converters, digital to analog, and then the cables, and then to the speakers, to the amps into the speakers and whatever. So like my speakers, for example, have amps built into them, and that cuts out one link in the signal path, and that's the link from the cable from the amp to the speaker. It's all internal, so that makes that less of an issue. Okay, that's huge. I mean, all of those things. Your situation. The way they talk about it is in among engineers is you're only as strong as your weakest link. Your signal path is only as good as the weakest element that you have in there. If you're using a really cruddy microphone or a poor selection of a microphone for the job, it doesn't matter how good the mic pre is. You could have a $40,000 mic pre. You could have a compressor. The Fairchild compressor that the Beatles used. It doesn't really matter if you've got the wrong microphone. And of course, a lot of the issue too is mic placement and the room that you're in. And so that's one signal path from the microphone forward or back to the recording and to the speakers. Microphone to the speakers is one signal path. I like to think of the microphone forward as being another signal path, and that would be the guitar you choose, the strings you're using, and the player. Okay, the room. Sometimes the chair you're sitting in can have an effect on it. If you're sitting in a squeaky chair, that's going to affect the sound, what's going to take. And then also what this video is really about is the pick. And what pick are you going to use? Now, I'm using, right now, my signal path is probably the crappiest signal path, and I'm just using the microphone on the computer. And so you're not going to be able to hear really a lot of nuance here. My hope here is that you're going to do the experiment yourself. And I talked about this before in previous blog posts and such about a pick. I can get a pick for 25, 30, 40 cents, or I can spend $5, $6, $7, $8 on a pick too, or even more. But just even starting with the cheapest picks, like these Dunlops here are pretty cheap. I think, I don't even know how much they are for 12, but $5, $6 for 12 of them or something like that. You can change the sound of your guitar. I mean, if I go from one extreme, a very hard pick, to a very soft pick, you'll hear it even through this miking situation. But what I want you to do is if you're a little tired of the sound of your acoustic guitar and you think I need to spend $3 or $4 grand on a new acoustic, well, before you do that, maybe pick up some new picks and see if you can get a different sound out of your guitar just by using a different pick. And it's a very, very cheap way of changing the sound of your guitar. Also, changing your string gauge or the type of strings you use is another way you can affect the tone of your instrument. A big way, generally the rule is if you go with a heavier gauge string, if you're using really, really light strings like an electric guitar set string on an acoustic guitar, it's going to sound very thin. If you go with a heavier gauge, it's going to be harder to play, but it's going to sound a little stronger, a little heavier, a little louder. The tone will be, I think, a little bit more immediate. Same thing's true with your action. If you raise your action a little bit, that can really help increase your tone, especially if your action's too low and the strings are fretting out. Okay, but the tone tool I'm going to talk about right now is the pick, and the pick that I use the most on acoustic is this black Jim Dunlop. It's just a nylon, the USA nylon. It's 1 millimeter, and I like a little bit heavier pick. One of the things I do is if I am strumming, I will hold the pick fairly loosely. And that way it kind of gives like a thinner pick, but I have the tone of a heavier pick. And if I want to do some soloing, I can grab down on the pick a little bit. Tighten my grip and expose less of the pick. Okay, so notice the sound of this pick. This is the 1 millimeter. Now I'm going to go to the thinnest, right from the heaviest of these Dunlop picks that I have to the 0.38 millimeter. It's a white pick. They go from black through gray to the whites, and for the different thicknesses. So you should be able to hear the difference there. Is a little bit more feathery, kind of brushy. You can hear more click. You can hear the it's kind of like a card in spokes, where kids would put a baseball card or a playing card in their bicycle to go against the spokes and make that clicking sound. Here's the other one. Back to the white one, the 38. Quieter. Now I've got a 38 here, and then I've also got a 44, which is not much, 46, which is only a little bit thicker. Going to the light gray one, which is a 60.60 millimeter. That one a lot. That's a good one. I have several of those. This one is 0.73, so that was 60. So this is 0.13 more, 0.73 millimeters, and it's a little darker gray. Now, again, I don't know if you'll be able to hear the subtle differences between these picks. This is another gray one that's 0.88. So this is the one below the 1 millimeter one. A little bit darker sound. So I would suggest, I'm going to do a part 2 on this video because I don't want to go too long. I'm going to suggest that you just go ahead and pick up one of, maybe 2 or 3 each of these to experiment with. And if you're doing studio work, it's a great tool to kind of, if you do a double or something like that, to change the pick so that you have a different sound for the other guitar. If you only have the one guitar and you're in the studio and you're doing a double, left, right, double or something like that, then just use a different pick to kind of create a slightly different tone. And you can also, when you're in the studio, you can take the time and A/B them and decide which one is right for that song. If you're doing 5 or 6 songs, you may use a different pick on every song because you may find that it makes a big difference, especially when you're getting into microphones, really good quality microphones, and again, a good signal path from the microphone to the speakers. You really want, you will want to have those options. If you have multiple guitars, that's great. I've got usually if I'm doing an acoustic session, I will probably be using 2 or 3 different guitars, but I will bring 5 or 6 to the session just to have options. I have friends that have just 2 dozen guitars that they will show up with at sessions to have all those options. So I'm going to do another video where I'm going to talk about more expensive picks. I've got some Wiegans here I'm going to show you, and then some weird things. Okay, some weird picks. So anyway, God bless you guys. I hope you are well, and I hope this is good information for you.